Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm actually glad that one of the members talked about the framers of this constitution. They are still alive and I'm one of them. And one of the things that we need to do is to go back to the legislative history of that constitution. One of the institutions that's creating a lot of confusion is the Supreme Court. That when a matter has been taken to court for interpretation about the role of the Senate, they've actually interpreted it very broadly to say the Senate can deal with virtually anything. And within that framework, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Chieng has actually removed words from my mouth. As National Assembly, we like lamenting when we actually have the powers. Let us also do exactly what the Senate is doing, expand our powers. Let us call governors here. Let us summon governors here. If it is a free-for-all and we all want to do, we can also ask governors to appear before us. Mr. Speaker, when matters are taken to court relating NGCDF, the argument is that in the Constitution, there are very strict issues that we are supposed to do as a national government and all that. Mr. Speaker, nobody speaks about the fact that counties give bursaries, when in the Constitution, in the schedule, it's very clear that the mandate of counties is ECD in education. So unless they are giving bursary to nursery school kids, that is actually unconstitutional. But because we actually understand that the bursary that they are giving is helpful, we choose to keep quiet. But the way we are being pushed at the National Assembly, we need to take action. But Mr. Speaker, I just want to agree with Honorable Chieng because this is what I wanted to talk about. I have said it elsewhere in different meetings, and I want to repeat it here. That there are those of us who want to be chairs of committees, but we don't want the work that comes with being the chair of that committee. Why does the Senate go ahead of us? They may have nothing to do, yes, but we can equally ask the same question of our own committees. Where are we? Mr. Speaker, I get perturbed, for instance, when I saw the other day, the Senate is dealing with something that has to do with classrooms, yeah? And they were asking about preparedness of classrooms, which is okay. The CS may respond, but who can allocate money in the budget? It's not the Senate. It is the Budget Committee in the National Assembly. So then what happens then? It becomes a mere PR exercise at the Senate. But here, we can make a decision. And we can say that in the next budget, this and this and this amount to be allocated. Mr. Speaker, what I would want to encourage this Parliament, it is unfortunate that the National Assembly and the Senate have this negative relation. And I would want to encourage some form of diplomacy, as has been suggested by TJ, that we need to improve our working relations because we will be more effective when we work and focus on our various mandates to the betterment of the country. And one of the ways that we need to do that, because there's already a legislative framework in terms of the relations between the two houses, we need some subsidiary legislation or some rules or some regulations in relation to how we work. I sometimes empathize with CSS. That you see the same CS has been summoned in the Senate, and then the National Assembly that has that mandate again summons the CS. What time do you think the CSS have to do their work? Recently, I was inviting my good brother Mbadi on my book launch, and I wanted to interview him for a documentary. My people went there from morning and sat until midnight. He was still at work. And he never managed to do the documentary, never managed to come. And I understand, because they're extremely busy, and his calendar keeps changing. Now, if we want to add on top of that with our own confusion, and Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate that because of this negative relation, you find that you pass an excellent bill here, like the last time I passed an excellent bill, assisted reproduction technology bill, even though I know you have issues kidogo with it. Let me remove kidogo, because I can't mix. But after we passed it here overwhelmingly, it went to Senate, and then the Senate sat on it. When I actually asked the Senate, I was told it's because of the poor working relations between Senate and the National Assembly. The women who need to give birth will not wait for...
Millie,
yes.
The minority whip, you give priority to every bill coming from the Senate.
Exactly.
Like you don't have business.
Exactly, here. Mr. Speaker. We give priority to all the bills that come from Senate and forget our own bills. And that's why I'm saying, let us stop this. Let us move from the book of Lamentation and go to the book of Exodus. Yeah, Exodus is where we will start implementation. So let us move from Lamentation as the National Assembly. And I want to encourage the chair of finance. Please go to the House Business Committee, seek also the leadership of Parliament, and there are some things we don't need to engage with before camera. There are suggestions of how we can ensure that every house does their mandate. We don't need to put them before cameras here, but we will ensure that the cabinet secretaries, let the one for the CS for Agriculture go to Senate, let the one for ECDs go to Senate, let the one that has to do with the fisheries go to Senate, in respect of their roles that are covered there. But the ones that have to do with the National Assembly, let us not overstretch those members. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I would want to support but ask and plead with the Parliament. Again, you have talked about the issue of the oversight money. Why are we complaining when we are the ones who passed the oversight money for senators? Let us stop lamentation when we have powers under the Constitution. This House has powers. Let's stop lamenting.
No, really, Honorable Millie, you are saying a very important thing. Because people, public officers or state officers are paid salaries so that they can be able to perform their work. The work of a member of Parliament, whether in the National Assembly or in the Senate, is representation, is legislation, is oversight. How does the National Assembly give members of Parliament in the Senate who are already earning salary to do their roles, including oversight, something called Senate Oversight Fund? And what would happen if they now demand legislation fund or representation fund? These are the things really you must be looking at. So I agree with you, we should not lament. But Honorable Watch, you are speaking as the last on this one. Then 2 minutes each. But allow Honorable Watch to explain to us whether the civil division of the High Court can sue the criminal division and whether the court would entertain such a suit. And why the courts are entertaining suits between two houses of one parliament and they don't see any problem with it. We were dealing with the CDF matter the other day, honorable members. And Honorable Wenbaya, what we saw shocked us. We are there, we have agreed in this diplomacy we are talking about. And when we are ready to proceed on that very last day we should be submitting, the senator sent a lawyer from our own directorate here to say they are opposed to CDF is unconstitutional. Even the judges are asking, what is the problem with this one parliament? So the National Assembly said by Mwendwa, the director of litigation, the senators also said, and there are people all sitting at 5th floor down there. You're like, what is happening here? Or sometimes you may be lamenting about courts, but what do you expect a court when one house of parliament is saying the law parliament passed is unconstitutional, and the other is saying it is not? You get what I'm talking about? So this is a very serious matter. Very serious. Honorable Watch, address in 2 minutes. Then Honorable Mboni, 2 minutes, and then we are done.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think the difference between us and the Senate is that while we know very well what the Senate is doing that is unconstitutional, they act on things which they believe they want to claim space expansively on, and we do nothing about. We have a legal committee which has representation from very senior members of our House. You have mentioned here bursaries. You have mentioned here, let me add for you, school feeding program. You have also mentioned oversight. Why haven't we gone to court? I think we need to think about that and act on those things that they do that are unconstitutional. Number two, the court recently spoke on an impeachment matter before it, and they said jurisdiction is something that you either have or you don't have. You cannot do it by craft of interpretation. If I were to extrapolate to the courts, and in this instance the Supreme Court, that very same logic, there is either jurisdiction for the Senate to do things under Article 96 or they don't. You cannot, by craft of interpretation, take or arrogate to yourself the role to say that the Senate can therefore do this because everything is security and everything is this and everything is that. I think there is something that we have to bring the Supreme Court and the courts to account. And Honorable Milley has mentioned this. The Supreme Court was never created in order to overreach or to do something that you call activism. Activism in itself. Lastly, what I want to say here in terms of way forward. The Attorney General exists in order to give advice to the government. I have heard two members saying here, let us start also summoning the governors. Let me tell you, the reason that governors will not appear here before you is simple. They know that the National Assembly has nothing to do with devolution. Why then would members of the executive, knowing very well that these roles have nothing to do with the Senate, accept nevertheless to appear before the Senate? We must call these people here and ask them, through the Attorney General, why haven't you developed a cabinet paper or policy that says, Cabinet Secretary, if you appear on a matter that has nothing to do with you, you will be sacked. I submit.
Thank you. So, Honorable David Mboni, then Honorable Wilberforce Oundo, lastly.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think this discussion is very important because I think Senate has forgotten its mandate. And one of these mandates is to oversight the Senate, and the functions of the count is to oversight count governments. And the functions of the count governments are well spelled out in the Constitution. Why this statement was sought by my chair of finance is that when we were coming from a meeting, we found Commissioner of KRA, Commissioner General of KRA, with his team, waiting to see Committee of ICT of Senate. And the issue was, what they were supposed to go and ask to answer is how they are going to integrate IFMIS, Integrated Financial Management System, with the Kenya KRA revenue system and count financial system. Mr. Speaker, when you look at that, that's not the work of KRA. In fact, that is a policy issue. And they should have actually summoned National Treasury for that matter. Because the issues to do with finances, even KRA operates under National Treasury. So, Speaker, what we are saying here is that Senate have forgotten their mandate. Senate, what they are doing collectively, or what they are trying to do, and which we actually know about them, is only the impeachment. Nothing else they are doing. The counties have a lot of problems, which need to be oversighted by the Senate. Mr. Speaker, we need a ruling. Senate should stop wasting time for ministers, for head of departments. When you are keeping KRA Commissioner General for 2 hours, and we are crying for finances, they should let this person to go and think strategically how he's going to raise revenue, Mr. Speaker. So I think you are ruling as a speaker.
So paraphrase it, to literally now take up that mandate and seriously have a sitting with the speaker, now take up that mandate and seriously have a sitting with the Speaker of the Senate and tell him on the face that the drafters of the Constitution and many of them are alive, they intended this and this to be like this. To avoid this kind of confusion and embarrassment, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it's very embarrassing that the Senate takes National Assembly to a court of law. It's very embarrassing that as an advocate from National Assembly is an adversarial situation with an advocate representing Senate. Honestly,
This one parliament.
Parliamentary Service Commission is an absurdity. It's a theater of absurdity. Honorable Speaker, the Speaker's panel, the senior members of the House leadership, Parliamentary Service Commission, must now be required to resolve this matter once and for all. It is. Honorable Speaker, I do not want to agree that senators are idle. I don't want to agree that the senators do not have enough work. Honorable Speaker, the amount of road that's at the county government level is so much work for them to do. I wonder where they even get time to wake up at 5 or 4 in the morning to spend all their day hopping from one television station to another, talking about things that do not even affect the counties. We have no medicine in county hospitals, Honorable Speaker. The health system does not work. Honorable Speaker, there is no agriculture. They don't support agriculture. Honorable Speaker, feeder roads are impassable. Honorable Speaker, ECD, the ECD boys and girls have to petition our own classroom built by CDF. There is so much to be done, Honorable Speaker. The issue of even cess, the issue of duplication in terms of taxation and levies. They have so much to do, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the report of the Office of the Auditor General, now the greatest source of corruption, loss of public funds, is no longer at the national level, it's at the county level. Honorable Speaker, how do you explain that any given county, 90% goes to paying for salaries and other emolument? Actually, Honorable Speaker, counties now have become employment bureaus. They are not service delivery centers. Yet the senators have the audacity, have abdicating their duty, neglecting their duty to come and encroach on matters that do not have assistance. Honorable Speaker, if they did not read the Constitution and understand that there were lower houses, the best thing they need to do, resign, seek ways to get to the National Assembly so that you can enjoy what National Assembly has been donated to. Finally, Honorable